Welcome. You are on the right channel. Today's story will make you question the line between the living and the dead. Listen closely to the tale of a Chaik, the boy who drowned too soon, only to return with a family, a market stall, and a truth too heavy for the grave. Olem was a place where time moved slowly and secrets aged like wine beneath the soil. Nestled between red clay hills and bordered by a restless river, the village was a patchwork of memories, gossip, and generational stories. Everyone knew everyone, and everyone remembered when a Chaik, the bright boy with dreams of teaching, died. It was during the rainy season. He was 14, cheerful, respectful, always helping his widowed mother in the market. On that fateful evening, he had been sent to fetch water. The river had risen dangerously high, but a Chaik was confident. He never came back. By morning, his body was discovered wedged between gnarled roots, his eyes open, as though surprised that death had come so suddenly. The village mourned. His classmates wept. Baba Arins, the oldest man in the village, led the burial. A Chaik was lowered into the earth with his sandals placed on his chest. Or so everyone believed. 20 years passed. Then, one hot Tuesday afternoon, the marketplace buzzed with its usual life. Traders shouted prices, children chased chickens, and the air reeked of fried bean cakes and dry fish. That was when a woman named Ifioma, now in her 40s, caught sight of a man behind a crayfish stall. He was arranging trays, measuring with the precision of someone who'd done it all his life. His skin was darker now, shoulders broader, but the shape of his eyes, the birthmark on his left cheek, and the signature gap between his teeth. "Chaik!" she gasped, voice breaking with disbelief. The man turned. Their eyes met. His expression was soft, almost knowing. "Ifioma," he said, as if he'd seen her just yesterday. She dropped her basket. Her legs trembled. "But you died." He smiled. Then, like mist touched by sunlight, he vanished. Not walked away, not ran. Vanished. Right there, in the middle of Ole Market. His tray toppled. Crayfish scattered. Coins rolled in different directions and then stopped, dead still. The air went cold. For a heartbeat, the market held its breath. Then came the screams. People who had bought crayfish earlier clutched their stomachs. One man fell to the ground, vomiting violently. A pregnant woman screamed and fainted. Vendors fled their stalls. Children ran. The entire market dissolved into chaos. By nightfall, the story had taken root. "A Chaik is back," they whispered. "The boy who drowned now sells crayfish." Elders gathered under the moonlit Udala tree, recounting what they knew. The details were too precise to ignore. The smile, the mark, the voice. And yet, what chilled them most wasn't the resemblance, it was the presence of children. Two small ones, a boy and a girl, had been seen earlier that morning calling the man Papa. He had knelt, tied the girl's shoelaces, and handed the boy a sweet from his pocket. But a Chaik died unmarried. He never had children. And now, the impossible had unfolded before their eyes. The tale traveled swiftly across Olem. By dusk, it reached the compound of a woman named Maureen, who lived near the outskirts with her two children, Pius and Amarachi. She was cooking ogbono soup when her cousin burst into her kitchen. "Maureen, Olem is on fire." She wiped her hands. "What's happened?" "It's your husband. They say he disappeared in the market. But not like a man. Like a ghost." Maureen laughed, brushing flour from her wrapper. "What ghost?" "My husband is home. He returned from Abakaliki yesterday. He's resting." Her cousin stared at her, shaken. "Then check. Go and see." Maureen walked briskly to their bedroom, calling, "Chike?" "People are saying." She stopped. The bed was undisturbed. His suitcase was gone. His shoes weren't by the door. The towel she left on the chair had vanished. Even his perfume bottle, the one she always teased him about, was missing. She turned in confusion. Then her eyes drifted to the wall where their wedding picture once hung. Nothing. The frame was gone, as was every photo that had ever shown him. From the family portrait on the mantel to the tiny Polaroid she kept in her drawer. Panic gripped her. She ran outside. "Pius, Amarachi." They came running. "Where is your father?" "He was here this morning," Pius said. "He gave me groundnuts." Maureen pulled them closer. Her heart was thudding. That was when she looked at her son again, properly. His face, always familiar, but now it was almost like a mirror. The resemblance to young Achike was haunting. Not just a hint, a replica. She had always thought the similarity came from her late uncle. Now doubt slithered in. That night, Maureen could not rest. She locked all the doors, lit a lantern, sat on the floor with her children and whispered prayers. Her mind raced with questions. Who had she married? What had entered her life 8 years ago in Sukkah, claiming to be a man named Chike? Was her entire marriage built on something not of this world? At dawn, with red-rimmed eyes and a firm grip on her daughter's hand, she walked to the elders. They sat in a solemn half-circle beneath the mango tree. She told her story from the beginning, how she had met Chike at a trade seminar, how gentle he was, how quickly he asked to marry, how they moved back to Olam after their first child. The elders listened, faces tight with unease. When she finished, Baba Arin stood slowly. "I buried Achike with my own hands," he said. "What you married was not a man. It was a spirit in search of something." "What was he looking for?" Maureen asked. No one answered. But that night her son did. Pius sat up in bed at midnight, eyes still closed, and whispered in a voice that was not his. "They buried my body, but not my name. I returned to finish what death interrupted. But my peace is stolen. My killer still breathes." Maureen clutched her mouth. The room smelled of river mud. The next morning, on the compound wall, a small muddy handprint appeared, far too small to belong to either child. The village had seen ghosts before, but none like this. A spirit with a home, a wife, and 2 living shadows. And this was only the beginning. The village of Olam, once calm and predictable, was now restless. Word had spread beyond its borders into Iziachi, Amuaka, even as far as Orlu town, that a man thought dead had returned with children and a vanished past. Some called it sorcery, others called it justice from beyond. The priests warned of ancestral unrest, while the herbalists consulted bones and fire. But for Maureen, the woman who called Achike husband, nothing made sense anymore. Her once normal life now felt like a fragile lied crumbling in her hands. Her son quiet, playful Pius now muttered cryptic things in the night. Her daughter cried in her sleep, pointing at shadows on the wall. And the handprint, that muddy handprint that would not wash off, grew darker each day. The elders summoned a meeting. No dancing drums, no palm wine, just quiet urgency beneath the ancient mango tree. Every stool filled, every whisper held back. Baba Arin stood, his cane firm in the sand. "This is no ordinary haunting," he began. "Spirits may visit, yes, but they do not marry. Father-children vanish in broad daylight. This one has a mission." "Then what do we do?" asked Elder Okonkwo. "How do you question the dead?" Before anyone could answer, the wind stirred violently. Dry leaves scattered. The ground cracked like thunder rolled beneath it. And from the edge of the gathering, a boy's voice broke the silence. He knows who pushed him. Pius had arrived, alone, face blank, voice deeper than any boy his age should have. The crowd turned. Pius stepped forward and looked directly at Elder Okonkwo. His gaze was not the gaze of a child, it was older, burdened, precise. He was with me that day, Pius said, by the river. He held my hand, then let go. Gasps rippled through the assembly. Okonkwo's lips trembled. He looked around wildly. Lies. That child lies. I was never. But his voice cracked. He stumbled back, hand gripping his chest. And Baba Arins whispered, "No child speaks like that unless memory rides his tongue." Okonkwo began to shake. I was just a boy. We were friends. I didn't mean to. He slipped. I panicked. I ran. So you let him die, a woman said. Okonkwo collapsed to his knees. I carried that guilt for years. I thought if I said nothing, time would forgive me. But time did not, because time had brought Achike back. Later that night, Maureen tried to hold her children close, but they recoiled from her touch. Amarachi stared into the dark corners of the room, muttering, "Papa's watching." And Pius, or whatever now spoke through him, sat cross-legged, eyes never blinking. At midnight, he spoke again. "The man who stole my sandals after I drowned has returned. The river wants them back." Maureen's breath caught. She remembered something years ago. During a rainy night, her husband had placed a pair of old sandals in a wooden box and buried it behind their hut. She'd asked about it. He said they were from a past he didn't want to remember. The sandals she dug that night. The earth was moist and stubborn, but she tore through it with her bare hands. Her fingers bled, but eventually hit wood. A small box. Inside, a pair of boys' sandals. Moldy, cracked. Still tied together by a thin strip of palm rope. The sandals Achike had worn when he died. And yet why did her husband, the man she married 8 years ago, have them? Who exactly had come into her life? By morning, Maureen walked the sandals into the village square. "I need answers," she said. The crowd parted. Elders stepped forward. She held them up. He said they were his. The sandals of the boy who drowned. If so, who was the man I married? No one could speak. Even the birds above fell quiet. Then, from the far end of the gathering, an old woman stepped forward, bent, gray-haired, her face like weathered stone. "I saw him," she said. "Who?" Maureen asked. "The day of the funeral. I saw something. As they closed the grave, a boy with wet clothes stood by the tree, watching, silent. No one else saw him, but I did." "You think it was Achike's spirit?" someone asked. "No," she said, shaking her head. "I think it never left." That evening, the priest agreed to visit Maureen's compound. He walked around the house, sprinkling holy water, reciting prayers. At the base of the wall where the handprint had darkened, he stopped. "There's a presence here," he whispered. "But it's not evil. It's grieving. Grieving yet restless." At exactly midnight, the lanterns flickered. Maureen clutched her children, heart pounding. Pius stood again, his voice layered, one young, one ancient. "You buried the sandals, but not the truth. Until it is spoken from the right mouth, I cannot leave." Suddenly, Pius turned to Amarachi. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Tell them." The little girl sobbed. "I saw him before he vanished. He said goodbye. He kissed me on the forehead and said, 'Tell your mother I'm sorry.'" Maureen began to weep. The man she married had known the truth all along. He had remembered his death. He had returned not for revenge, but for resolution. And now that Okonkwo had confessed, something had changed. The handprint faded the next morning. Pius woke up and asked for Akira. His eyes were clear. His voice was his own. The haunted silence that had wrapped the compound finally lifted. But Ichike was nowhere to be found. Not his clothes, not a letter, not a footprint. It was as though the life he'd built, the home, the laughter, the love had been borrowed from time itself, and time had come to collect. Life in Olame village slowly began to settle, but no one truly felt at peace. Even though Pius had stopped speaking in that otherworldly voice, people still avoided the path by Maureen's house. Children ran past it. Elders crossed themselves when they passed the gate. Something still lingered. Maureen knew it too. Each night, she stared at the empty space beside her bed. She would reach out sometimes, hoping to feel the warmth of the man she had loved, the man who had fathered her children, even though now she wasn't sure who he truly was. Was he a spirit? A second chance at life? Or a shadow of something deeper? One evening, she sat outside, peeling cassava under the moonlight. The children had fallen asleep early. The air was still, too still. Crickets refused to sing. The lantern beside her flickered once, then died. That was when she saw him. At first, just a figure by the mango tree at the edge of the compound. Tall, calm, his form almost blending into the dark. "Ichike," she whispered. He stepped into the moonlight. It was him, not just in shape but in soul. The way his eyes held hers, full of sorrow and longing. But there was something different now, something fading. "I had to see you one last time," he said quietly. Maureen dropped the cassava bowl. "You left. You disappeared. You let me grieve you while raising your children alone." "I didn't plan this," he said. "I didn't know I would return. I woke up one day by the riverbank, just like before. But this time I wasn't drowning. I was standing, alive, breathing." She stepped closer, tears blurring her vision. "Why come back if you would vanish again?" Ichike looked away. "Because I still had something unfinished. Something buried with my body, my voice." Maureen's hands trembled. "Was it all a lie then? Our love? Our home?" "No," he said quickly. "That was the truest part of my second life. I loved you. I still do. But love borrowed from death can't last forever." He reached into his pocket and brought out a folded piece of paper. "This is for Pius. Tell him when he is older, when he starts to ask questions." She hesitated before taking it. "You can't go again. You can't just disappear. I have no choice. The land has called me. My time among the living is ending." A gust of wind swept through the compound. The lantern sparked back to life on its own. "Ichike, wait," she stepped forward. But he was already fading. His feet blurred. His body became mist. Only his eyes remained visible for a moment longer. "I forgive you," he whispered. "Tell them I forgive them all." And then he was gone. For good. No footprints. No shadow. Just silence and the rustle of dry leaves. The next morning, Maureen opened the folded paper. Inside was a short message in Ichike's handwriting. "To my son, Pius, if you ever wonder who you are, know this: you are more than a child of a ghost. You are a child of truth. Carry it bravely, and let the river remember peace, not pain." She wept as she read it. Then she folded the letter and placed it in the family Bible. Later that week, the villagers gathered again. Baba Arins, looking older than ever, stood before the crowd. "We owe a debt," he said, "to the boy we failed, to the truth we buried. Let us honor him, not as a ghost, but as a child of Olame who found his way home." They held a second funeral. Not with a coffin, but with memory. Children held candles. Mothers sang soft songs. And at the riverbank where Ichike had died long ago, they planted a tree, a young Irako. Beside it, they placed a stone with his name carved into it. Ichike, son of Olame, voice of the river. As they sang and prayed, Maureen stood with Pius and Amarachi beside her. She felt no fear now, only peace. The river, once feared, now ran gentle, and in its whispering current, some claim they heard a soft voice say, "Thank you." 10 years passed. Pius grew tall, strong, and quiet just like his father. He walked like him, smiled like him, even laughed with the same half-crooked grin. But there was something different in his eyes, a depth, a silence that made people wonder if he still remembered the night his father disappeared for good. He did. He remembered everything. Sometimes, in the middle of class, he would feel a chill on his skin when no wind was blowing, or hear a soft humming by the riverbank when no one else was near. But Pius never spoke of these things. Not to his mother, not to his sister, not even to the priest who came once a week to pray over the family compound. Instead, Pius read books, listened more than he talked, and when he turned 17, he began visiting the river every evening, standing beside the Irako tree the villagers planted in his father's memory. One evening, as the sun bled across the sky and painted the river orange, he heard a voice beside him. "You come here often." He turned. It was an old man with a walking stick and tired eyes. "Baba Rins." "Yes, sir," Pius replied politely. "Do you feel him here?" the elder asked. Pius hesitated. "Sometimes." Baba Rins nodded. "Your father was a mystery. But not all mysteries are curses. Some are just waiting to become stories." Pius looked down at the carved stone that bore Ichike's name. "I don't want to be a ghost son forever." "You're not," the old man said. "You're a bridge." Pius raised his eyes. "A bridge?" "Yes," Baba Rins said, tapping the earth with his stick. "You connect two worlds, the forgotten and the remembered, the broken and the healing. You carry what your father could not." The boy stood quietly, letting the words settle like dust. That night, Maureen found her son sitting by his father's last letter again. He did this sometimes, unfolded it carefully, read it silently, then folded it back with a reverence deeper than prayer. "Pius," she said gently, "it's okay to ask questions." He didn't answer right away. Then he asked, "Why did he choose us?" She smiled sadly. "Maybe he didn't choose. Maybe we were the part of him that was never lost." The next day, something strange happened in Olame. A little girl fell into the same river that had once taken Ichike's life. She was playing too close to the edge, screaming, struggling. The current was fast. But before anyone could even run to help, someone jumped in. Pius. He reached the girl in seconds, lifted her with strength beyond his years, and pulled her out. The villagers watched in stunned silence. The same river that once swallowed Ichike now gave way to his son. When he climbed out, soaked and shaking, the girl clung to him, crying. Her mother wailed with gratitude. Someone shouted, just like his father. But Pius turned to them and said calmly, "No, not like him. I'm writing my own ending." And from that day on, people no longer called him the son of a ghost. They called him Pius the River Walker. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and share.